Hey everyone, this is Anshka Gupta and welcome to my channel. Let's code and solve by Newton School. I hope you are being understood by the previous concept that was polymorphism in Python. Today we're gonna study about what is the need of JSON in Python. Before going to that, let's know what is Newton School. So Newton School is a platform which prepares you for career in tech. It has courses designed for freshers, working professionals, and also for women with non-tech background. Newton School first trains you for 6 months and helps you to become amazing full stack developer. It also has a network of more than 300 great companies who hire from Newton School. And the best part is that Newton School has a pay after placement program under which you don't have to pay anything to Newton School until or unless you have been placed with minimum 5 lakh CTC. Let's know about the companies you are being placed. Here's the Newton School website. You can log in and sign up yourself. The companies you are being placed with, that is 7-Eleven, Rapido, Motorola, Xiaomi, Lenskart, and many more. Let's move to our concept, that is what is the need of JSON in Python. So we study about the what are the bubble sort, assertion sort, and now today we're gonna study about the what is the need of the JSON in Python. Before going to that, JSON is in Python. In a Python is a standard format inspired by the JavaScript itself for data exchange and data transfer as in text format over the large network. So generally, JSON is just a string or a text format. It is lightweighted data interchange format, subset for JavaScript and Python itself, and it is easiest for the human beings also to read and write easily, being given the manipulations to the machines to parse or to generate the code in the JavaScript or the Python orientation. It has a language independent about the reading structure. So basically the APIs it can be used by the APIs, by the databases, or any of the represent objects orientations as a name or a value, but in a pair of it. Okay, now JSON is absolutely the JavaScript orientation, so it means like JavaScript object or notations for that. Now what are the properties of JSON? So moving forward with the properties of JSON, it is, first of all, the first property of JSON is that it is the human and machine readable format. It is it has a strict syntax and parsing requirements. Basically it represents the most of the general computer science, general records, general trees. It always written in a key and pair, just like the dictionaries. It always obtained in a curly braces. Then in the it always have a key and value in it. The dictionary cannot be executed even in the single key or a single value, both occurs in the pair. So just like the JSON also have a particular syntax about writing, that the strict syntax for the pairs and the key values in that. Now what happens when we use the data interchange? So using the data interchange, it is very simple. It is very common representation of data. It communicates between the server and the browser. What happened when we use an external module of the Python, mainly for the version of the JSON? It always related to the operations like encoding, decoding. Then you first have to import the JSON file. Then you have to that convert that to into a Python file, that is .py extension and that. So where we can use the JSON. For using the JSON, it is always being written, and it is always being useful to write the JSON when you are being writing that based on the application, what application you are being building upon. Okay, now if your application is being static or if your application is being dynamic, so it depends upon the application you are being using it. So it is primarily to transmit the data between the server in a web application, the whatever the web application and the server has an interconnection of using the API transmission or API creation, API system interchanging, and any of it, it always uses in the primary status, not in the secondary status, to transmit the data between the server and the web application. And now where we can use a JSON. JSON is a wide application of using in a various field. JSON can be applied in PHP, in Perl. JSON can apply in Python. JSON is with JavaScript. Obviously, it's an object notation of the JavaScript. Then, when we use JSON with PHP, here the JSON PHP using JSON encode, JSON decode, JSON last error. In Perl, the syntax is the to JSON, from JSON, convert place. In JSON with Python, there is encode and decode. JavaScript, JSON stringify and passes there. Now, why the JSON is always being configurable? Now, what is like encoding? So, in the JSON library of the Python performs a following of the translations of the Python objects into the JSON object by default. Okay, now dictionaries are always been converted to the object. In the like in Python, we use dictionary, and JSON we use that as an object. List we use in our Python. So in that JSON we use like array, Unicode in Python, then strings there are in the JSON files. Now why the JSON is being connected to each and everything? So now JSON is a syntax for storing and exchanging the text information intermediately, and after that when a JSON text has been converted or simultaneously it has been identified, that is the code that we use to create the object in the JavaScript. This is just similar to instead of parsers or the JavaScript is a built-in. Then functions and execute JSON data to produce a native JavaScript objects wherever the objects are being using, as we have been converting the Python data to the JSON, that is called the encoding operations. Now when the encoding is done with the help of the JSON library, that is dumps, that is the method to convert actually the dictionary objects of Python into the JSON string data format. Why only the JSON is being needed? 3 reasons to use a JSON. First, clean data. Second, efficiency. Third, scalability. Okay, when we compare the JSON to XML files, that is XML file, JSON is completely very smaller. It doesn't have any of the memory allocation problem or memory storage problem. It is faster than the XML files and it is easier to parse it also. Now how we use our JSON file or JSON syntax? So for using that, JSON syntax is just a subset of the JavaScript syntax. Rules to use the syntax of the JSON, that is first of all the square bracket to hold the errors, second the curly braces, third the braces can hold the objects or the data can separate by the commas, fourth the data is a name, the value pair is there, the key value has been there as compared to the dictionaries we have. So always JSON name value appears and it can be written as a name as in value of sections, just like the example of the first name is John. So here is the key and the value both, just like the dictionaries. In dictionaries we use the curly braces. In this, the first name is there as the key value key and another one is the value part. Now why we use and how to use our JSON values? For JSON values, first of all remember can be integer, can be number, that is integer and float, just like the data types we read. Then string in a double quotes, obviously strings are always be executing in a double quotes. Boolean, that is true or false, true for 1 and false for 0. Array is in square brackets, then objects in curly brackets. The null value can also be passed in the JSON files. Now what happened when we use a JSON object or JSON parts in that? JSON parts are always written inside the curly brackets. If there is no curly bracket, there will no execution of your program because objects are being predefined in your curly braces only. So object can only have the multiple names or a value pairs. Either it can have the multiple name or it can have the value pairs, like value and their pairs are being containing in that. Just like the example I mentioned before, is that the first name should be the John and the curly braces are there and the values are being separated by the colons. Okay. Now what is the difference actually what is the main difference between the JSON and XML file. That is very important. So JSON file are always and always text based. XML is a markup language. JSON data type are being used in a string, number, array, boolean, and null value can also be passed upon. In XML, only and only strings are there. Okay, and in JSON, we don't start with like it doesn't contain any end tag or this start tag in it. In XML, we contain the start and end tags. In JSON, we include arrays, and XML we doesn't include any of the array. In the JSON, we support the namespaces. We doesn't support the namespaces or any of the functional imported or anything. In XML, we support the namespaces. Now let's forward to the programs, just to write some of the programs of JSON. So here we're gonna write any of the program in the JSON. We already wrote about the how to import. Just to import the JSON, we write this syntax: import JSON. Okay, now if we have to parse it or just to convert JSON to, this is just a program to convert JSON to Python. Okay, now what happened when we convert this? First of all, we have to import our JSON files. Okay, now when we import our JSON files, now we have to name some of the JSON passing of any of the JSON files on that. Suppose I am passing this X, brackets I am being defining. Now in this I am being writing the name. Name is John. Okay, again I am defining the age. And ages I am writing 30. Again the city I am writing. City, any of it you can write. Okay, just I am writing the city New York. Okay, I wrote this. Now what happened when you are being executing that as a parse of X? I'm being parsing now. Parse X. Now when I'll write like my Y is equals to JSON dot lots. Okay, now I have to just parse this of the X part. Now if I have to print the value of Y, that would also be equals to the age. Okay, now if I have to write this again and I have to pass in the age. So this will be the output if I'll be passing the, just see, if we are been converting this JSON file to the Python, these are all the these are writing as the JSON part. Okay, now I have to parse my X. The parsing my X, the value will be automatically loading as a JSON file with a Y. Now the result of the Python is just a dictionary part. Like suppose I'll mention here, it's a dictionary execution. Whenever I'll passing any of the value in this, it will be giving me the value opposite to what it is. Okay, now suppose I have to give similarly I have to give the Y as a name. Okay, now I have only want to give a name. So while inputting the name as an output giving, that is a John. Okay, this is converted JSON to the Python. Just similar to that, when we will be providing the converting then again Python to JSON. Like suppose same program I'll be writing Python to JSON. Okay, now again the import is JSON only. Now suppose if I gave same name of like if I'm being giving the same name of my name, age, then New York and everything. Okay, I'll be giving the same. Now I have to write it in this, and I'm separating that. Okay, name also, then city also. Okay, everything I am being separating. Okay, now again I have to convert this as an from this Python to JSON. Okay, now it will be converting my JSON part. Okay, just I am commenting convert JSON. Okay, again if I have to dump that. Okay, now I have to dump it, not load, just to dump it. I'll dump my X. Now if I'll have to simply print my Y, just in simple, I have no execution in that, just to simple print my Y. So it will be giving me the output. Sorry, what mistake I did. Just a second. So this will be giving me the output of this name John, age 30, and then city is equals to New York if I have dumped that the structure of it. Okay, I hope it's been clear to you. Thank you.